Kelly, a former prostitute from California, became easy to love. On Christmas Eve of 2019, Soft White Underbelly made a video interviewing Kelly. We find out that she was abused by her mother when she was a baby, raped at 5 by her foster parent, and a prostitute by 11. We hear her story, we know her past. We learned that she planned on killing herself that Christmas because she had no one and nothing. Kelly's story went viral and money started pouring into helping the young girl get back on her feet. Suddenly, Kelly is easy to love, but tomorrow was a different story. Kelly was accused of lying about her story by people who didn't even know her. YouTubers made videos questioning if she told that story about her life to get money from people. Kelly's own mother had to come out to defend her, revealing to the world that she had to call children's services on herself because she was abusing Kelly. Why did people have a change of heart about Kelly and a sudden loss of trust? Well, with money in her pocket from the fundraiser, Kelly's Instagram showed a girl with long fingernails, flashy clothes, and ghetto jewelry, and an attitude that would have you running for the hills. Can you love her now? Without her story, you couldn't really love her. As much as we like to think of ourselves as loving people, no one really has the capacity to give her the love she really needs. Kelly is one of millions of people in this world who has been dealing with trauma from the womb. Trauma can result in creating a person that no one can really love. Everyone wants to shout from the rooftops about how love is love and all we need is love, as if their version of love will fix everything. But our view of love is just as empty as the people in Kelly's past. How can we as a society claim we can love someone like Kelly because of her traumatic past when divorce stats reveal that we can't even love our spouse we chose to marry? I'm sure that spouse of yours would be 100% easier to deal with compared to Kelly, who probably deals with tons of mental health issues. So, all this talk in our society about love is a bunch of fluff, rainbows, and unicorns. It's not real. With all the romance we have in our entertainment, we continue fooling ourselves in the next generation with our skewed understanding of love. I used to work for an organization that rescued teenagers from forced sexual slavery here in Ohio. Ohio used to be number 1 for human trafficking in the US. Since learning about human trafficking back in 2005, it pained me to know that this was happening in our country, but has always been here. While working for the human trafficking organization, I learned that advocates are trying to change the definition of a prostitute from a loose, lazy woman to someone who is a kidnapped victim of careful craft manipulation. Yes, there are people who choose to be sex workers, but girls don't just wake up one day and want to be a prostitute. When I started my job as a resident assistant for trafficked girls, I worked with teens ranging from 12 to 17 years old. I came in wanting to save these girls and give them the love I had as I heard their stories, but I got a rude awakening. Although these girls were rescued and now in safe hands, they needed to be rescued from the damage done psychologically by their families, foster families, and the pimps. The idea that these girls just needed a safe place and home with love and understanding was an understatement. It was like I was in an episode of the Bad Girls Club minus the alcohol. Before these girls were victims of sex trafficking, most of them had been neglected and abused by their parents. A lot of times their parents were abusing drugs and were the pimps themselves, selling their children in order to support their drug habits. The life these girls knew just made them perfect targets for traffickers to come in and fulfill a role of a loving person that these girls so much desired. Traffickers take this already broken person, twisting them even more. So, you can imagine what it's like when you walk into a house of 6 rescued teenage girls all having PTSD and other mental health issues would be like. It was like all of the difficulties you would have with a normal teenager on steroids. They cared about being liked, being cool, being tough, not looking weak, back talking like most teenagers, but would explode if something small didn't go as planned. Dishes would be broken, furniture would be destroyed, girls beating each other up, even threatening to beat me up too. All of this could happen if a snack was taken away, for not doing homework. It can be very easy to be caught up in fear and just give them what they wanted, rather than standing your ground and not being afraid. But you have to remember their story. How all of these things they've been through made them who they are today. Things you can't even imagine or wish over your own enemies. Building a relationship with these girls required seeing past their trauma to see who they truly are. But love is a totally different thing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoice with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. It's hard to love someone who treats you bad and doesn't respect you. It's easier for us to love someone who doesn't cause us pain. The truth is, organizations like the place I used to work at always starts off with good intentions. But without love, the way Corinthians defines it, that passion will dwindle away. You will get caught up, even acting like the people you're trying to help, and you become the one who's changed. So, how do you love a prostitute? Kelly's life story became an opportunity for people to feel good about themselves by giving money and opportunities to her. Yet, when Kelly failed to meet people's expectations for immediate change, we lost hope in her and accused her of lying. People searched the internet for clues that would confirm their suspicions about her. People collected screenshots of her family as evidence of her lying about her being in the foster system. Kelly tried explaining that these pictures they saw on the internet was her visitations she received from being in the system. So that love for Kelly we gave her came with conditions. If Kelly took that money to only do good and improve her life, she could continue receiving help from those who followed her story. The problem with that is Kelly isn't human, and because of all the abuse she lived through, she may not make choices that meet our expectations. If you actually wanted to practice love, it has to be unconditional. Love like that either comes from a natural bond a parent has for their child, or it's supernatural. The unconditional love that is supernatural only comes from God. It comes from a relationship with God, spending time with God, and understanding the human condition. It comes from knowing that you aren't good enough to help someone who's been traumatized their whole life. Knowing that you are human and not morally superior than anyone. God knows the ins and outs of all of us, and He is the only one who puts mercy and forgiveness in our heart for the difficult people in our lives. God helps us with that because He knows people desperately need it. Outside of the group home I worked at, it got me thinking about the people who are unlovable in this world, those whose stories we don't know. It could be someone you sit next to at work, a family member, or a classmate. You may know people who are very toxic, but it may not be their fault if that's all they know. If you know who God is and His Spirit already resides in you, don't be afraid to love unconditionally, because the ability to love comes from God. He will give you the wisdom to know how far to go with someone. If you don't know God, but you want to be able to love the unlovable, you can ask Him to help you. And if your heart is open, you will have the ability to actually love people fully, the way He does. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.